Hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Discovery evening. Tonight, we are going to be talking to you all about the wonders of Botswana. So we have Emma with us. Emma, I'm sure that many of you will know her already. You'll either have traveled with her because she's one of our wonderful wildlife photography leaders. And you'll know she's a great photographer. For those of you who haven't traveled with her yet, you may have spoken to her on the phone. She may have arranged one of the wildlife holidays that you do with us because she's also one of our wildlife travel consultants as well. So Emma Healey is going to be doing the majority of this presentation. My name's Nick. I'm one of the directors here, and I'll be talking a little bit at the very end, just to give people a bit more of an insight into what it's like to be on a mobile tented safari in Botswana, which is one of the great wildlife experiences that you can do. It's a really thrilling experience. So I just thought I'd illustrate a little bit more about the logistics and the practicalities of undertaking one of those kind of safaris in Botswana as well. I should also say that Emma is coming live to us from Manchester Destinations Travel Show.
The glamour.
At this time of year, throughout the year, there's all sorts of wonderful travel shows that happen. Bird Fair being one that everyone knows about, but there's also these destinations travel shows as well. It starts tomorrow. We've got a stand there, so that's tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Emma's on the stand. Are you there tomorrow and Friday, or are you there for the whole stint, Emma?
Yeah, tomorrow and Friday. So if anybody's around, do come and say hi.
Tomorrow and Friday. Yeah, so if you're in the area, or if you're at a loose end, or if you're planning to go anyway, then go along to the Wildlife Worldwide stand at Manchester Destinations, and Emma will be there as well. So Emma, let's get into the presentation. I should say to everybody who's with us, if you do have any questions, the best way to pose those to us is through the Q&A function that Zoom has. So if you hover along the bottom of your screen or at the top, depending on what device you're looking on, there'll be a little button there that says Q&A. You can post your questions there whilst the presentation is happening, and then we'll come to those at the end of the presentation before we say goodbye to everybody. Alternatively, you can do exactly the same using the chat function as well. So Emma, I'm going to hand over to you, and I'll be right here wishing that I was in Botswana as well.
Thank you. Hi everybody, and thanks. I'm hoping the Wi-Fi stays, and if there's any weird noises, I'm sorry, it's not here. So welcome and thanks for joining us. So like Nick said, we're here to talk about Botswana. I mean, as most of you know, and I think I saw quite a lot of names on there. So hi to people who have traveled, and I know there's a couple who are traveling this year. So I hope this kind of either brings back memories or whets the appetite, or both. So we're going to really talk through a bit of a variety. This is just I mean, a lot of people call and say, I want to go on a safari, and you go, okay, brilliant. Where do you want to go? Oh, I don't know. And a lot of it is about what you want to see. And so Botswana is one of these places. And I think I'm going to show that because, as usual, I've got far too many slides. So I apologize. This is going to be a bit like one of those old flip books that you used to read when you were a kid. I'm just going to kind of fire through, but just really to give you an idea of the huge variety. I mean, I could talk all night, but, nobody needs that. And thank you for being here instead of the traitors if you stay past 8 o'clock. But it's somewhere that you could talk about for hours because it just gets under your skin and there's so much there. So we run a number of trips, and this is just some of them, and this is the ones that you'll be asked to choose if you want any information about later. I'm going to be talking really about these top two. So I did two departures of the Heart of the Delta photography trip last year and in March, and then the Botswana photo safari in June, July. And there's a bit of a difference, and I'm going to talk really through the differences of that because people often ask, when should I go and why should I go then? So I just want to really highlight how different the sightings can be and just kind of the environment and temperature and things like that. So we're going to talk through a bit of that. But Heart of the Delta is more of a lodge safari. Botswana photo is a bit of mobile tented and a bit of lodge. best of Botswana, and Botswana wild dogs are mostly mobile tented, as well as Botswana's birds and mammals, which is in green season. And then we've got the wings over Botswana, which is more lodge based, but that is tailor-made, so it can be tailored for whatever you'd like. But just to kind of have a bit of an idea of the variety of trips that we do there, but anything's possible, as we always say. So I thought I'd start with one of everybody's favorite. This is an elephant taken in March on the heart of the Delta. And then just as a bit of a comparison, this is, I don't think it's the same elephant, taken in June, July. So you can see really there, I just wanted to kind of highlight the differences mainly, and I'm going to sort of keep probably harping on about this, but March, very green, end of the rainy season, which is kind of November till January, February, green, lush, lots of lovely trees. June, July, middle of winter, can be pretty chilly, especially in the mornings. And you'll get much more of this goldy yellow, which, both are beautiful, but they give you different opportunities. So starting with the heart of the Delta. So like I said, this is March. It's for 8 days, one camp. It was pom pom and will be again. And it's beautiful. It was such a stunning camp. So this is the tented, the main area, and this is kind of what the tents look like. Um, but actually they've just knocked it down to rebuild it because it needed a bit of a refresh. Bits and pieces weren't working, and I think they just wanted a shiny new one. So this year we're being rerouted to Splash Camp, which is slightly further north. Um, and this is one that they've redone fairly recently. So just to kind of give an idea, a sneak preview to those who are going this year, this is the main area in there. So you can see it's just a kind of a bit light and fresher. And I think that's the theme that they're really trying to get throughout their camps. So hopefully next year when we return to Pom Pom, it's going to be a bit more along these themes. And the rooms, they're trying to integrate the power more into next to the beds and just the little things that actually just make life easier. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. Um, so yeah, I'm going to start flicking through quite a lot of photos, so bear with me. But like Nick said, do ask any questions and we can answer at the end. So while we're at Pom Pom or Splash or any of these camps with Quando, we have a tracker on the front of the vehicle. So we have a driver and a tracker. So anytime there's a sighting of cats or dogs, they hop in the back with you. So just to kind of get them out of the way and keep them safe. And also then obviously that gives a lot more visibility on the front. But this lovely long grass, like I was saying, the sort of green and lushness, it can be tricky at times, but I just love what it adds, to your pictures, to the sightings, to the feel of it. And these are the vehicles that we use. So open-sided, and you've got these quite low bits. So if you want to, you can kneel on the floor. There's never more than six in a vehicle. So obviously you've got a side each. We'll always try and flip it around if we need to, or, do a bit of vehicle Jenga, but you can get down and kneel on the floor there just to give you a bit of a lower angle. And this was one of my favorite things, actually, the baobab trees that normally you see. I suppose I've probably been to Zambia a few times in, in November when it's really dry and you see the baobabs just kind of, they look like they're dead. And it was incredible to see it full leaf and, looking really lush. So it was just really nice. So I'm going to obviously start with cats and dogs because let's be honest, that's what most people want to see. Um, both Pom Pom and Splash, all of these areas and everywhere in the Delta really is just prime for predators. There's a lot of grazing areas, grassy plains, that kind of thing. So it obviously is fantastic for predators. So lions are definitely a key species that you should see. They tend to climb. I know Uganda is famous for tree climbing lions, but honestly, we had quite a few tree climbing lions on the trip in March, and we followed these three sisters for quite a long time over a few days, and they really enjoyed this tree and were climbing all over it, probably to get a better vantage point to see what they were going to have for breakfast. But it's really lovely to see. And then, you'll see them at various times of day. This was actually just after a hunt, which I'll come back to in a bit, but I just loved the pose on the tree. But you'll just get them in any angle. And obviously, normally when we'll see lions, they tend to be flat cats. They will be sleeping. They sleep most of the day, or drinking, which is lovely if you can get them. And if you can then shift the vehicle and try and get in front of them. And of course, as soon as you get in front of them, they'll turn their head. But it's a really lovely area where they're just so relaxed with you. And I think, like Nick, I'm sure will say later as well. It's just one of these places you can sit in the vehicle and they'll walk past and sometimes even scent mark your vehicle, rub up against it. So they really don't have a problem, which is lovely because you just really feel like you're in their world. You get some lovely opportunities with the tall grasses, which, some and anyone who's been with me, I know you're going to be saying we can't see their legs, but I don't mind in this instance. So yeah, it's just a really nice, it gives you a really nice feel, I think. You've got some lovely big old males, and they tend to kind of stick with the prides around certain areas, so you'll know vaguely where they'll be. And if you're lucky, you'll see a decent sized pride. These are all kind of sub-adults and the mothers that were hanging out. I think there were 9 of them in total. And we came upon these actually after a bit of a macro session. It was a bit of a shock to come around the corner and see 9 lions. But it had been really hot, so they were resting in the road, which gave us some really lovely opportunities to just drive the vehicle kind of along the road to be straight in front of them. But it's lovely when you get to spend time with them and you see behaviors like yawning and rolling around and playing and all sorts. Um, and like I say, they just kind of get on with their business. They walk towards you. I think quite often they're as curious about us. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if at one point one of them just pulled out a camera, but it hasn't happened yet. You never know. And when they get closer, and there are good and bad points to a prime lens, but sometimes they get a tiny bit too close. But actually, I don't mind sometimes because you really just get that moment where they're looking at you and, a bit more of the detail in their faces. Obviously, babies, we're all after babies, aren't we? So we're always on the lookout for cubs. If we see the lovely thing about having the trackers is that actually for this one, the trackers had spotted, they didn't know there were any cubs in the area. So they spotted some of the cubs' paw prints with the mums. And we actually then tracked them to behind this termite mound where they were resting. And their mums were really lovely, enjoying, the grasses around them as well. These were the 3 sisters again, so we caught up with these quite a few times, like I said, and especially in the morning, they were really playful. So it was lovely to just be around them and watch them, having a bit of, I think, friendly banter. But it did look quite vicious sometimes. And then obviously once they had had enough of that, they just lay down, had a bit of a rest. So yeah, it's lovely, especially these ones were fairly close to the camp, so it was really nice because we would see them. And actually, once we were a bit concerned that they were going to try and hunt in camp. One morning we were late having a wake up and we didn't really know why. And as soon as they came together, we realised it's because the lionesses had been wandering around camp, so we had to wait for them to vacate, thankfully. Um, but often you'll just find them walking across the plains, and it's incredible how easily you can drive past them because if they're behind a mound or lying flat, you won't see them. But this was a couple of young males who were with an older male that we knew was hanging around, but we hadn't seen. He hadn't been seen for a few days, and we had a call to say he'd been spotted. So we drove quite a way in the hopes of seeing him. Thankfully, there he was, one of the older males in the area. So it was lovely to see him because he's obviously sort of a bit battered, which I always quite enjoy. But as you can see, there's a female next to him, and we did hang around for about an hour and a half with them in the end. And every so often, we did get a little bit of action. So it was quite quick. I think it was coming towards the end of they mate for about 2 days or so, every kind of 20 minutes or so. And it's quite an intense couple of days for them, and they're exhausted and they were clearly quite tired by this point. But yeah, it was nice to be able to see them together before they separated. And we were there at sunset, which also then gives you some lovely abilities. If you can, you get opportunities to try some backlighting. And that's one of the things with photography trips. And I often say this, people ask why you do a photography trip over a general safari. And it's things like this, if you want to be, and that's why we're here, we're thinking, well, what if we put the vehicle there? Will it be good? And so, we'll try things. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But yeah, hopefully you get some good shots from it. So this was the lioness at the hunt. So this was again these 3 sisters, but on a different morning. And they'd taken down a wildebeest, which must have been just before we left, or as we were leaving. And they were in the bushes enjoying it. And they kept taking it quite far in, but actually then they pulled it out again. And sorry, this is a bit gruesome. And I think obviously the lips must be quite tasty, but she was obviously didn't want anybody else to share it, but she was hanging on to it. But I think it's just really nice that that they're so relaxed with you while you're there. So yeah, lions are Obviously a big draw and everybody loves to see them. But one of the things people really want is leopards. So let's move on to them. So leopards, everybody always says go to Zambia for leopards in trees. And don't get me wrong, leopards in trees in Zambia generally pretty nailed on. But I am going to bore you silly now with leopards in trees because we saw I, I think over the 2 weeks it was about 15 or 16 different leopards, never mind sort of multiple sightings of especially two of them. So, if you're lucky, you get there as they're climbing the tree, and then it's always a bit of a toss up of do I video it? Do I try and get a photo? Which way they're going to go? Which way they're going to climb down? It's a lot easier when they're like this. So, a bit like the flat cats, if a leopard's in a tree, hopefully it's not going to go anywhere for a while. So, it is really lovely because you can go in various angles. They'll move to different positions in the tree. They'll be watching you. They'll go to sleep for a bit. They'll move their paw to the other side. They'll have a cheeky yawn. So it is lovely that, there's these gorgeous trees there that lend themselves to this. And it ends up at the point that you drive past every kind of tree with a vaguely straight branch. You're thinking that's a fantastic leopard tree. And you just hope next time you drive past it, there might be one. But it's something that you see quite a lot. I mean, that was one of the females, the last couple that we saw. This was a really big male who was resting in a tree in the heat of the day, and that's the lovely thing because it does get quite hot at that time of year. It is a lot warmer. It might be kind of early 30s during the day, but it stays fairly warm overnight. So it's a lovely temperature if you're good with heat, but it's not overbearing for most of it, which is quite nice. And as you saw, the vehicles are covered, so. But you can still get really good angles and you can see, he was quite a lot higher, but you get good, good vantage points and the trees are all, they seem to be made for photographers. They've got all these lovely low branches that are set really nicely. And then obviously as the leopard's coming down again, you get them from various positions as they're heading on their way down. So it's lovely. One thing I've not seen before, actually, this reminded me of my cat and her scratching post because she just suddenly started. She was obviously up there to look for lunch, and she just started scratching the tree so you can see all the bark coming down. But it was lovely to just see that behaviour that makes you realise your cats are related to these guys. And then she did relax and she was really beautiful. So she just enjoyed it. And this was getting towards later in the morning. So it was quite bright. So it's one of the things that we often say, after the light gets quite harsh, we do try a bit of black and white sometimes, and sometimes in camera and sometimes afterwards. But I think it worked quite well with this one just because there was not much background. So yeah, it's quite fun if you've got the time to just have a bit of a play with those kind of settings. And always lovely when they're walking through the grass. And again, you think, oh, it's so hard to see them. But actually, if you can get that gap in the grass, it is, for me, I think it's just beautiful. And again, she climbed another tree. But luckily, this one was just towards sunset. So we got some really nice background for her. And she was just relaxing there while she waited. And then I think it was a few days later, we pulled up on the way back. We were just heading back for lunch and we pulled up at a tree because there was a giant hornbill in a tree. And we thought, oh, you don't see that very much. So we'll just stop and take that. And we were all taking pictures of this giant hornbill. And the driver suddenly turned to me and said, don't look now, there's a leopard in the tree. And when I turned around and literally probably 5 meters above us was this leopard fast asleep in the tree. So we stayed for a little while, but obviously the light by then was quite bad. So we came back after lunch and she was still up there. She'd moved across to this other tree. But we spent the whole afternoon with her and she was like some sort of supermodel. She moved to various branches, gave us different positions. The light obviously changed. But it's lovely to have that private reserve where you don't have to. That's one of the things I didn't say. It is a private reserve, so it's really only your vehicles that are on there. You might see a couple of others around the edge of the conservancy, but it's a private reserve where we stay. So you can stay there really as long as you like. So it's lovely because you just get all these different opportunities. You can move the vehicle back a bit, forward a bit, round a bit. She might turn around. She might think about getting down and she'll just sit there watching for a while and then decide she doesn't want to get down and who knows. Sorry, this is obviously a male, not her. Um, so yeah, it is a wonderful place. If you just want to see leopards relaxing, for me, Botswana is hands down the place. And then the lovely young lady that we just saw, this is her brother. And we followed him. We saw him a couple of times actually. He's a lot shyer, and male leopards do tend to be shyer. But he did kind of give us a couple of really lovely sightings. This one, he'd been hiding in a bush, and then he went up to the tree and stayed there for a few minutes and then ran off afterwards, but not before giving us a couple of really lovely poses. So it was fun to just have a bit of a play with him. He had a bit of a stretch. He ran round to the other bushes. He got in a different tree, obviously. I wonder if they feel the comfort level. Maybe some of the bark is softer, who knows? Did a bit of a climbing lesson, posed a little bit for us. So it is really lovely because you can just follow them around and watch what they're up to, and yeah, it's fabulous. This was a really big male that we'd seen him on a termite mound earlier, and he was not looking like he was going to move anywhere. So we went back for lunch, and then when we came out in the afternoon, luckily he'd decided to chill out in the tree for a little while, and he just looked so comfortable. It was fabulous. Yeah, and again, like, if you're lucky and you can get them coming down, quite often they stop to have a quick look around to see if there's anything to eat. Normally everything's done a runner because it's seen them in the tree, but if they're lucky and something's missed them, it might well be there. And then again, if you can get them coming down, I think it's really nice to get the action shots and watch them jumping out, and then off they disappear into the grass and you don't see them for however long. So it's nice. Again, this is the brother, and this was early in the morning. So this is just to kind of, and I'll come back to this later as well, but this is just to show a little bit of um, quite high ISO, quite wide aperture because I think this was pre-sunrise, and then this was post-sunset. But I actually don't really think it matters. You get some lovely cool light in that, the blue hour. And it gives you some really nice opportunities. So we always try and get out before sunrise and then go back as late as possible. And we do stop for sundowners on most of them. Although on quite a lot of the photography trips, I tend to stop for sun gone downers just because it's a bit too risky to miss the sunset. So if we can, we'll keep going. If we've seen something, if it's quite a quiet afternoon, we'll just have a relax. But you can see why, the light at sunrise and sunset is just beautiful, and it gives you some really kind of different opportunities. And then if you're lucky, you might find a mum and a baby. Obviously this isn't so much of a baby, but it was a mum and a sub-adult, and they were walking through the bush away to try and the mum had come back from hunting and called the cub, and she came out of the bush and went and reunited, and then they walked off down the road together. So I thought that was just quite a lovely moment. And then if you're really lucky, you get sightings of something like this, which we only had very brief sightings. They hadn't seen it yet. None of the guides had seen the baby. They knew she had one, but they hadn't seen it out and about. So we were really lucky this day that we just kind of sat there, and it was just at that moment the mum called her and she popped up. It popped up onto the trunk and then saw us and thought, no, thank you very much, and went back in. And the mum lay down in the sunset and tried to call her out, and it didn't really work. But we stayed a little bit, went round the other side of her where she gave us some more lovely views. So yeah, that was a lovely, just a lovely experience, and not one you get very often when they're so tiny. You'll often see the cubs once they're a bit older and running around, but that one I think was only about 6 weeks. And then a couple more that we just saw out and about. This one was looking quite thin, so a bit of an older lady. But again, just by chance, we drove around a corner and she was walking along the road. So we followed her off, and she walked off the road onto this tree, had a bit of a look, and then carried on into the grass. And any sensitive viewers, the next one, she's got a bit of an injury, but we don't know what happened. But it just shows you what kind of lives these guys lead. That she's obviously lost one of her eyes, but obviously she's coping okay and, still managing to hunt. And again, we were just driving back, and the guide went, hang on a minute, I think there was a leopard on that termite mound, and just reversed, and there she was. So you never know where you're going to find them. Which brings me to my next one. We went for, we came back for lunch, and I went to my tent, and then we were just going for the afternoon drive, and I ran back to get something from the tent just before we left, and I saw a dead lechwe underneath the tent. And I thought, I'm sure I haven't seen that before, but it must have been there. And so we went out for the drive. I told the guide, and we said, well, it must be a leopard. A leopard must have brought it, so it'll be back later. Lo and behold, as we were out on the drive, we got a call, and this guy, which I think was the large male that was in the tree, was lying underneath our tent. So we kind of slowly approached just to have a look at him. And he was quite happily eating until about 2 a.m. when the hyenas came to try and nick it. So they dragged it down the path in the camp and took it away. But what an experience. And I don't think I can say I've ever been to bed listening to a leopard crunching on bones before. I mean, I wouldn't say I'd like to do it again in a hurry, but still an experience. And then, so cats and now dogs. So these dogs, obviously, wild dogs is something that a lot of people want to see. And this was a really big pack, I think of about 17, 18. And we managed to find them in this lovely open area. So you get the light was just dimming. So you get some lovely images of them. And then we found them hunting a few days later. They're not the easiest to photograph, actually, but they are just wonderful to watch, and you're always going to be in for a bit of fun when you find a pack. And they tend to be quite inquisitive. They'll always hang around together, and often, watching to see what's coming, which is generally a hyena because they follow them in case they catch something. They'll leave obviously the bits after they've eaten it within a couple of minutes. And the hyenas, I mean, a lot of people don't like them. I think they're gorgeous. So this one actually, when we were having sundowners one evening, we stopped the vehicle and got out, and suddenly one of them popped their head up. We hadn't even seen them because it was getting quite dark. But they just hung around for a few minutes and then off they went, which was lovely. So yeah, they are. Yeah, some of them are prettier than others. I'll give them that. Um, but this is part of then. Obviously, we've done the cats and dogs, but a bit more of a variety. So I'm just going to cover a few things. And again, anyone who's been with me, I've completely failed to put in an impala, and I always say, make sure you've got an imperial a picture of an impala, and I don't. So I can only apologise. Just imagine there are a lot of impalas around. So that's something that you'll see everywhere. But yeah, ostriches, something that you'll see, and especially I really like with these grassy areas because they stand above the grass and it just gives you that nice perspective of them. Elephants galore. Anybody who loves elephants, Botswana is fabulous for that. Huge herds of breeding females um, who tend to kind of hang around together. They feed, dust bathe if it's getting a bit warm. And then some of the males tend to be, a bit obviously they're on their own, so you might just drive around a corner and there's one there. This guy was headbutting the palm tree to try and get the palm fruit to drop down from it. So it's always really interesting to watch. Giraffes, obviously, quite a lot of people's target. And it's lovely when you get these oxpeckers. It feels like the one on the right is just giving it a bit of a hug. I don't think it is. But they're really good. And to watch this symbiotic relationship that, they really support each other, it's lovely to watch. And also quite a lot of antelopes. Obviously, the impalas, you've got kudus, who, if you're lucky, have a bit of a tussle just to give you, a bit of behavior. Uh, and oh, he snuck in here, and a wildebeest. And one of the things, again, if we've got the time, and especially when it gets a bit brighter, if you can, we'll do a bit of panning just to, do something a bit different. But I quite enjoy it. It's a bit of a lottery. You might take 100 and get none, but it's really good to have a bit of a play. So kudus, if they pose, they are just the most beautiful subjects, and if the light is right, which it really was on this morning, they can be really stunning. So yeah, if we can find males, we'll just try and stay with them for a bit and see if we can get some nice portraits of them. But even in this, I think the females look stunning. I mean, even they are beautiful, but yeah, this grass I think really sets them off because it just brings out, and I love it when they've got their ears facing you. It just looks like they've got little beacons. And you can see again the oxpeckers on their back. And then Sesame, they tend to kind of stand on a mound on their own and just watch. So I think this one actually every day we drove past it was there. I don't know if it actually moved. I think it's real. But they're really beautiful, really muscly, kind of hench antelopes. And you don't often see them in big numbers, but they're always really lovely to photograph just because they're generally looking at you because they're quite inquisitive. Um, So more wildebeest again, they're a little bit shorter, so actually it is quite difficult to get the separation of them from the grass, but I still think the grass adds something to them. And then if you're lucky enough to get them out in the open, then you can get some nice portraits. And also some buffaloes. Again, we only saw some lone males here. We didn't really see any big herds, but it's lovely still to see them. Zebras having a bit of a play. They were dust bathing because it was quite hot, and then warthogs everywhere generally, but you normally see their bum, so it's lovely to get a face of them. Monkeys, quite a lot of vervet monkeys around, but normally running from here to there. And the baboons, who more often than not will be standing, sitting, watching everything go around. These are more tricky, obviously, because the grass is quite tall. You'll see a lot of tails going through the grass, but lovely if they sit on a little termite mound to keep watch. And woodpeckers. So if you're lucky and you're driving past, you might see woodpeckers. Um, and these are sort of the things that hide a bit more. So the banded mongoose, they live in termite mounds generally, and we passed a termite mound and it was just overrun with them. So we managed to get a few of them. They're normally just running back into the hole, but we actually managed to see a few of them keeping watch, and yeah, it's lovely to see them enjoying their space. Jackals, you'll see a few jackals again. They tend to be mostly on their own. But I think, the grass adds a bit to the greenery adds to the color of them. And so I feel like this one was just given as a cheeky smile. More giraffes. So the light is something that, I mean, generally in Botswana is incredible. And this time of year, I think because of the green, it gives you that really nice warm glow. And we had a lovely herd of lechways right just before sunset. And this one is one of my favorites, just as the sun was setting and we put ourselves in front of the lechway. And it's just fabulous to have those kind of opportunities. One thing they do have, there's not a lot of water around. Obviously, the floods haven't come down from Angola yet to fill the delta, but there are little lagoons, so it's really good for hippos, and we can get out at the lagoons so that we can get ground level, which gives you some lovely opportunities for the hippos. Sometimes they'll, do their yawning behavior at the end of the day, which is lovely, or you'll get them in the nice, serene water if they're not too fussed. And after sunset, if you're lucky, you'll get a nice sky. Always depends on obviously where you are, what's happening. But it's nice to just we tend to have sundowners and just spend an hour or so with the hippos at the pool. And you'll get geese flying past. And obviously the smaller things, you'll get some dragonflies there. On the bushes, you'll get some butterflies. And as I was taking the butterfly, then this elephant walked past. So you just never know what's going to come. But again, because you're out of the vehicle, you can be really nice and low, gives you a bit more perspective. And also an open billed stork then just popped up, and because it was quite late in the day, again, I went black and white just to mix it up a bit. For those eagle owls, these are one of the things that people often really want to see, and often you only see them at night. So we were lucky here; we saw them a few times during the day, actually. Once flying, and then one morning we were really lucky and saw a pair that spent a good 40 minutes or so just calling to each other. He called her over; they were calling to each other, sitting next to each other. So it was just really lovely behavior to be able to watch, and silence everywhere else. So yeah, stunning. Battle's eagles, often you only see them flying, but we were lucky with this one. We found it perching, but then the next day we did actually see one flying past, and we were desperately trying to get it right in front of the moon, but obviously easier said than done. And the one thing I said to my guide when I got there, I've never seen a snake eagle with a snake. Why do they have their name? And about 2 days later, here you go, a snake eagle with a snake. Terrible light, but I thought I'd put it in anyway, just because it makes me smile. And other birds of prey, so you get Dickinson's kestrels. These are beautiful. I think if a cartoon was going to do a kestrel, it would be one of these. And normal, I've completely forgotten the name of them. Kestrels, will be flying around, and they tend to kind of perch. If you do find them perched, they will perch on the edge of tree branches, logs. If you can get them taking off, it's a really lovely thing to do. We'll try as much as possible those and lilac-breasted rollers, things like that. If they are perched, to wait for them to fly, see what happens. Also, kingfishers. It's really good for kingfishers. So these striped kingfishers are beautiful against the greenery, which is lovely. And then because it's been quite wet, the woodland kingfishers are around. And if you can get them in flight, there's really beautiful blues in their wings. So it's a really lovely variety. if you're lucky and you get some good sightings of them. These pied kingfishers, if you're having sundowners near the water, generally you'll get some pied kingfishers fishing. So gives you some nice opportunities. So again, some rollers, and then a kukal, which had unfortunately for the frog caught a frog, but fantastic to see. So we found where he was nesting and watched him coming and going from the nest. And then you've got the smaller birds. I never like to overlook the smaller birds. So the larks are really lovely and they're really photogenic, especially these rufous-naped ones. They tend to be most of what you hear in the morning when you're driving around. You can just hear them calling. So lovely to stop and spend some time with them. And then this year was my first year seeing green pigeons. These are fascinating and they really like to hide. So you have to really kind of drive in and try and find them, which is pretty tricky, but they are stunning. And the larger birds, you get these corhans, but I think they've now just reclassified them to bustards. And if you're, depending on what time you see them, if you can find them sort of calling, they do a mating call, puff out their little um, throat. They are lovely. And bee eaters, everybody loves a good bee eater. So these little bee eaters tend to kind of flit around and you'll see them going from perch to perch. And actually found one with a bee. Who knew? They do eat bees. Normally you'll see them with just any little bug, but I think it was the first time I'd seen one with a bee. And these is one of the ground hornbills. So like I say, often you see them sort of scavenging around in the grass, but we did see some in flight this time, which was lovely because I just think they're so prehistoric. Barbet, so you'll often hear the calls of these. This is the black-collared barbet. And then you also get this one that I've forgotten the name of, the barbets. And often they can be near the restaurant and come and just scavenge food at lunch, which is infuriating but very sweet. So yeah, they are wonderful. And then parrots. So we stopped for sundowners under this sausage tree, and the parrots were going for the sausages. So it was lovely to be able to see them eat. You don't see a lot of birds eating the sausages, so it was lovely to see that. One of my favorite things was this bat. So they had these fruit bats that were nesting outside the lodge, and actually, as we were leaving the dining room at lunch one day, this one just popped in and stood there for a few minutes, thinking, "Hang on a minute, I think I'm early," and went back out and went and roosted again. But yeah, at night, if you're lucky, you can find some chameleons. So we found this one on the way back from a night drive, and we looked for him every night after, but didn't find him, unfortunately. So just a little bit, obviously, because it's me, about macro. So this is a really good time of year, obviously, because of the bushiness. If you do like macro, there is a choice. If you'd like to do any, we can do some during the lunch break or whatever, or potentially do some on one of the activities, especially while it's still hot and the light's quite harsh. There is a spider warning, so there's a spider coming next for anybody who doesn't like them. And I think David is here, so thank you for this, David, was a bathroom break in the morning coffee. And he came back from the termite mound and went, "There's something that you want to see around here." So yeah, we all had quite a lot of fun with this gorgeous wasp spider. And she was quite happily just sitting there waiting for something to come. And in the end, actually, just before we left, she caught a grasshopper and wrapped it up in the web, which was really lovely way to finish it. But okay, spider's gone. Lovely butterflies. So there's really nice, and in these cornflowers, there's some really lovely opportunities, especially. So these are all with a longer lens, just to have a bit of fun with the butterflies and, get them in their environment. But there's some really stunning ones. Um, and grasshoppers, and then crab spider eating a bee, and you can see the tiny flies trying to get in on the feast. So all of this is there, but we normally don't stop. It's a bit like if any of you have been to the Pantanal, often you're sitting there waiting for a jaguar and you look down and there's stunning red dragonflies or whatever else down there. So yeah, it's lovely to be able to just take the time and have a bit of a look at what else is there. And often you'll see, butterflies like this flying past, but when you take the time, you can really kind of appreciate them for what they are. So there's a few more. And these cornflowers seem to be really good for them at this time. So hopefully, if we can find some of these, it's a really good position to do some of the smaller things. And bee flies, anybody who's tried to take any pictures of bee flies knows how difficult that is. And then moths. And one of my favorite things, oops, is weevils. And we do a little bit of what's the difference between, people often ask, should I take a flash or not flash? So this is one without the flash, and then this is one with the flash. So that just gives you a little bit about the difference of it. And this one, again, that's using a tiny bit of fill flash. That's a mantis that looks like it's ready to pounce. And then again, and this was a gift somebody gave to me at dinner one night, said, I think you might want to have a look at what's over here. So this was just on the table in the dining room. Um, and then at sunset, if you're lucky and you get the dragonflies near the water, if you have sundowners near the water, you can have some really lovely opportunities. And one of my favorite from this year actually was this one, as the sun was setting behind it. So it's just a fantastic time to go. I think, you can see how grassy it is. It can be tricky. The cats and dogs and things can disappear into the grass. But I think for me, it's worth it for the effect that you get and the beautiful softness of it all and the greenery and the colours. So yes, fantastic time to go. Also, there's one in June and July. I should be nearly finished, but I'm not. I'm so sorry if anyone's got anywhere to be. So this is our Botswana photo safari, 10 days, mobile tented camp for the first 6 nights, and then we go to a lodge for the final 3 nights. So there are some dogs in here if anybody's good at finding hidden things. This is the difference. So you can see the grass a lot flatter, drier, more of a kind of sandy colour. And also, by what everybody's wearing there, you can see it's pretty chilly. So this time of year is cold. We had it about 1 or 2 degrees. We could see our breath at breakfast one morning. So it can be really chilly. There are hot water bottles, they do look after us. There are blankets, but it will be chilly. So I often say bring thermals, and people think I'm joking. But do bring thermals. So this is an example of the tented camp. This is one of the ones that we stayed at. So they set up these tents in these beautiful areas. They've got these areas that are set out for them that they're allowed to use. And you get there and it's all just made for you. So this is just one of the examples of a camp. And you can see the tents and then the dining area there. And then you're free to kind of roam around, which is lovely, as are the elephants, who obviously live there. So they will roam around. So you sit outside. Obviously, the top is covered. You can see you can sit by the fire after you get back and you've had a shower. You've got the blankets there to keep comfortable. So it's really nice and as comfortable as you can get when you're in the bush. I'm just going to play this video because this was just as we were leaving camp at one point, and it just shows really how relaxed they are. So this was a small group of bulls who were enjoying some downtime. But I love the kind of behavioral, behaviors that you get to see from them. And just they're not at all fazed by us, which is really lovely. And I really enjoy it when they hold their trunk over their tusk like that. They rest it. And you think, I mean, it must be very heavy to carry around all the time. So you can see why they need to rest it sometimes. He just likes you. Looks like he wants to have a little nap, doesn't he? But no. And often people are worried, it's getting too close. It's gonna, generally the guides really know their behavior of the animals, so they will always keep watch. And if it's ever not safe, we would leave. So obviously back to cats and dogs. So more lions. I mean, really, it's all of the same. I'm so sorry. More lions and more leopards. More lions, some lovely males there with some really big sort of furry manes. So again, the lovely light, and actually there you can see the grass is a lot flatter, so you get that really different perspective of them, where they're kind of walking towards you, and you don't have. Imagine the grass would be kind of up to the bottom of his mane if it was March. And if you can find a pride, you get the females and everybody generally, sleeping or lying down, and then you can have some fun with the younger ones. So we spent quite a lot of time just watching these guys having a bit of a play, trying to swat the flies away, trying to figure out what we were doing, trying to have a bit of a rest on mum. Mum didn't want her to. Mum kicked her away. So she decided to have some food. So it's just lovely to kind of stand and watch, and it's amazing because you can look around and obviously everybody, there could be 6 of you in the vehicle and you'll get completely different photos because I think there are about 15 lions there. And this was actually quite middle of the day. We just had lunch and we had a call. The guide Alex was hoping we'd find them, and we had a call to say they'd been seen. So we zipped up here out of our way just to try and find them. And luckily, he knew exactly where to go. So yeah, we got to spend at least sort of 40 minutes with these guys. Um, and I love this one. It just makes you think you can reach out and tickle its tummy, but I'm not really sure I'd like the claws that came to grab you afterwards. So yeah, these lions, I mean, always stunning to see, but you can really see the difference, I think, with these grasses, and that's kind of what you come to expect. So it just gives you a bit of a variety, really. And then leopards, more leopards. This lovely lady we followed, this was really near our camp actually, and we think we heard alarm calls overnight and think she actually walked straight past the camp, probably straight through it. But she walked straight towards us, past the vehicle. She climbed a tree. She stopped to have a look. And then obviously that was all too much for her, so she lay down. And this was getting towards the end of the day. So we spent, well, until sunset with her, kind of hoping she'd move, or she switched position a few times. Oops. So we got a, and we would, again, the lovely thing about having that time, and because she was so close to camp, meant that we didn't have far to go at the end. So we could just stay with her. So actually, there were a few vehicles there, and gradually, one by one, they left until we were the last ones with her, which was really nice because then we could just pick where we were, sit there and just enjoy watching her. Um, and I just thought I'd put this one in because actually this is a half a second exposure handheld. So we were really kind of pushing. At this point, I looked at the tree and I could hardly see that there was a leopard in the tree. So it goes to show you what today's technology can do. Um, so yeah, it can be quite nice to just have a bit of a play and, push yourself and push your camera, and some of it might work and some might not. Um, but yeah, it's better to find them obviously during the day if you can. And then dogs, we saw dogs a couple of times on this trip, and invariably it was just as we'd got out of the vehicle to have a drink or to have a break or to do something. And Alex said, "There's a dog running past." So we had to hop back in the vehicle, go and watch them drinking, trying to hunt. But really lovely to see all their interactions, especially whenever they greet each other, they have these lovely interactions and their tongues and they whistle, and it's just fantastic to watch. And again, where there's dogs, there's hyenas. So these two were following them around, just waiting for them to catch something. And luckily, the guys knew where there was a den. So we spent, I think, 3 days at the den in the end, and they had about 10 pups. So I'm going to really bore you with pups now. I'm so sorry. Um, so the pups came out. They were quite shy, but as soon as they were kind of out and about, they just relaxed and enjoyed themselves. They were quite inquisitive. They, sometimes went straight under the vehicle. See their little fat bellies. They're obviously very well looked after. But I think, especially if you've got the adults are all generally lying down by this point because they're exhausted from hunting. But the cubs, they're outside, they want to play. So you can really have some fun with them, just watching them enjoying the freedom of being outside, the sunshine, running around, chasing each other. And it's fabulous. And this is the kind of time of year that, they're denning in May, June into July. So in July, really, you should be able to see them coming out of the dens if you're lucky, if you know where they are. And we'll try and obviously maneuver the vehicle get as low as we can around them so that try and get eye level. But they're just the most gorgeous things. I did try and cull some of these slides, but I just couldn't because you just can't delete a pup. And then as the light changes, you can have a bit of a play with different kind of lighting and get some directional light on them. Sometimes it gets a little bit flatter. This guy had a bent ear. I love his little bent ear. And he seemed to be the bravest one. He's probably going to be the leader of the pack, I think. So yeah, I think in total we probably spent about 3, 4 hours with these guys, but it never seems enough. And then suddenly they're all done, or the adults off, they go hunting, and they go off in a line, and one of the dogs will stay with the babies, and off they go back into the den to stay safe. So it's a really wonderful thing to be able to watch. Again, elephants, obviously, lovely to see them in the grasses. they tend to either, well, just mainly be eating, to be honest. Often dust bathing, and especially if you can find them towards the end of the day. This was actually our first evening. We found these, I think there were about three of them. And they were dusting themselves off in this late afternoon light, and it just created some beautiful kind of dusty, cloudy backgrounds. But again, finding them during the day eating the trees, and again doing a bit of backlighting can be nice with elephants, but also with the monkeys. The light here is just really wonderful at any time, really, especially in the morning and the evening. Again, the directional light that we can get and the warm light in the morning and the evening just, I think, adds to any kind of portrait. There's a lot of little lagoons and small kind of pondy areas. So if we can go when it's morning and we still get the reflections, that can be really lovely. Well, there is an impala. I've got an impala. Um, and some baboons, they tend to kind of move around in the undergrowth, so it's quite tricky to find them sometimes, but he was obviously enjoying the sunset, so that was lovely. And then the geese enjoying the water. So yeah, some lovely opportunities because again, if it's close to camp, we're able to push the timings a little bit, trying to get these guys running through the water. So these are pukus and they tend to be in the wetter areas. So Botswana is a fantastic place to, these are not pukus, these are red lechways. Um, so it's a fantastic place to see them running through the water, and they love that kind of marshy, swampy area. But you will also get zebras. I know I haven't put a lot in of them, but I thought I'd focus on the other stuff. So yeah, zebras and impalas and lechways, squirrels, more mongooses, and you will, if you're lucky, see these around the termite mounds, but also running through the grasses. And if you're lucky, get them standing up like this. One of my favorite things from this trip, weirdly, I know, sorry, snake, was this snake, which is a puff adder that we saw. We were stopped actually looking at, I think it was a herd of buffaloes crossing or a herd of wildebeest crossing, and we heard this hornbill going crazy in the tree. Um, so we reversed a little bit to see what he was shouting about, and Alex was like, "There's a snake." So we watched this puff adder, and he was just happily going about his business. And a few of us who were slightly less sane got out the vehicle just so that we could get slightly closer to him. This is with a long lens, not my macro, so don't panic. But yeah, you just never know what you're going to run into in the bush. So obviously with the water, we get quite a lot of good bird life. Blacksmith lapwings tend to be everywhere, to be honest. You'll hear them more, but you'll see them in most of the wet areas. African hoopoe, then you'll see them. And if you do see them, they're generally picking stuff off the ground. The hornbills that were making all the noise, and then hammercops, which are always lovely to see. And actually, this one gave us a really lovely reflection in a puddle, actually, a small puddle. And then we saw potentially that one or another one just taking nesting material up to its nest. So lovely to see them doing something a bit different rather than just perching on a branch. And again, some oxpeckers. So these are, normally you only see them hanging off the side of an animal, but actually it was lovely to see these guys in their nest. And the shot that we all try and get every time, the lilac-breasted roller taking off. So we will wait quite a long time sometimes for them to take off, and they'll go completely the different direction than you want them to, obviously. But there's really good opportunities for things like them and swallows flying around. If we've got, we're having a coffee by a lagoon, then we can just take some time and try some birds in flight, which is really nice. And also things like this open-billed stork, they'll tend to just be fishing for snails and things. And owls, again, these guys, if you're lucky, you can find them as we're driving around. They don't often sit on open branches. Normally they'll be kind of hidden in the undergrowth, but he was obviously feeling quite brave. And again, these were rose eagle owls. So this is when you normally see them at night. But yeah, we were lucky earlier in the year to see them in the day, and it is possible to see them earlier. And then the last one of the birds here, this is just some kingfishers, but we found these towards the end of the day, and we tried a few different things, but I thought black and white worked quite well for them. But it's nice to find them with the open background. And that's a nice thing in some of these places. It's a place called Paradise Pools, and it's very kind of open and flat and lots of water and separate pools. So lovely if you can get the clean backgrounds. as we're heading along the trip, we do a little Makoro ride. It's only about an hour, but just gives you a bit of the feel of it. I know a lot of people really want to try it. It's a lovely way to just explore this little riverway, go through in your little Makoro being driven along. You get some lovely lilies. The main wildlife focus is the reed frogs, which sit and call from the reeds. So if you can get close enough, you do get the opportunity for some photos of them, which is lovely. And then the last 3 nights we stay at Pangolin Lodge, which is down in Chobe. So we go past Kasane, and it's just kind of on the outskirts of town there in Kasane. Lovely lodge overlooking the delta there, so you can see down to the river. And then our activities are predominantly boat-based. So this is their own boat. It has, I think, 8 seats, and each one has an attached gimbal head and the seat turns 360 degrees. So it just gives fantastic opportunities for things on the river. So you can really just kind of get low, get some lovely angles on the river, be beneath the elephants and, get that the bank above you. And there's some lovely, I mean, the elephants tend to come towards the end of the day, and you'll see some really nice behaviors and be able to get quite close. We do tend to do one drive probably in the park, and then you can get really close to them if with us, we were lucky they chose to come really near us to eat the minerals out of the sand next to us. But it lets you do something slightly more abstract. But yeah, towards the end of the day, they walk down out of the park towards the river, sometimes run, and then they cross the river. And we were really lucky this day just to be at the right point where they were coming across. So we waited for them, and they had a bit of a play before they got out, which was really lovely to see. And then got out and carried on. And it gives you some lovely opportunities at sunset just to kind of use the river and get them, hopefully, with the sun. So we'll keep an eye out where they're walking and just try and get them as near the sun or with the sun somewhere, but just to have some fun with the sunset, really. But it's just a nice way to finish with a different perspective, really. So hippos, we may have seen some in the pools, but lovely to see them just in their environment, running into the river at the end of the day. They're too hot. Eating on the grasses always looks like a game of hungry hippos. Towards the end of the day, obviously, starting to yawn and get ready to leave. Buffaloes, often solo buffaloes, but really give you some lovely opportunities for portraits of them. And I don't think you often get, really nice solo buffaloes in water. So yeah, it's a really lovely opportunity. And something a bit different, these water monitors were both just sitting on this log, obviously made a nest here and enjoying it, but something that you wouldn't normally see. So just adds a bit of difference. Obviously some crocodiles. This guy was a big guy. And then obviously because it's me, there were some little things. So I just we had a bit of a play with the water boatman one morning when it was really still, but again, not something you'd normally do. So it just lets you try some different things. Bird life there is fantastic. So these collared pratincoles tend to be in huge flocks on the beach, and as soon as you kind of go near them, they will get up and fly off. So it gives you some really lovely opportunities for something a bit different. But they are really beautiful birds. And then skimmers and terns will be having a bit of a scuffle. They'll be, on the beach or getting some food from somewhere. Blackwing stilts, hornbills, various different species of hornbills, Monteros, and then herons. Also, you'll generally see them. So this is a squawko heron. You'll generally see them in the reeds, but lovely to see them flying over as well towards the end of the day. And there was a lovely place that the guides knew that there was a white-fronted bee-eater nest. So we drove around there on the boat first thing so that we were hopefully there as they were leaving the nest. So it was really lovely to see them getting up, starting to stretch their wings, get ready to go. So we spent a while there with them and then went further up the river and saw a few more small things, some bee eaters, some of the parrots. So yeah, really lovely. Storks. So you'll find, there's never nothing to see. You're never going to be going down the river and thinking, where is everything? There's always something. It's just, what interests you really. Malachite kingfishers, always something that we're looking for, very hard to find. But again, that morning we were quite lucky, found one just sitting on the edge before it zipped off. And then one of the last things we actually saw on the trip was this gorgeous pied kingfisher that we'd been watching in its nest, going back and forth. There were two of them going back and forth. And just before we were about to leave, obviously, we've got to go, we're going to be late. One of them splashed right next to the boat into the water, came out with this catfish, I think, brought it right near us, and then sat on the beach and bashed it and ate it and took it into the nest. So yeah, it was a lovely way to finish. And that's just, you just, like I say, you never know what's going to happen. So just some really wonderful experiences. And I thought I'd finish with a sunset because, why not? And then just to hear highlight some of our options that we offer. So we can talk through any of them. But if you do have any questions about any of them and the differences, then just give us a call in the office and we can talk you through that. Okay, I've kept you for far too long, so I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Joynes. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. That was brilliant, Emma. Thank you so much.
You're
It's quite
welcome.
nice because a lot of the things that you were saying actually neatly lead into a couple of things that I'm going to say, and I'm only going to be about 5 minutes just to explain mobile tented safaris. But a couple of things that you're saying there lead quite nicely into some of the advantages and some of the perks of doing a mobile tented safari. I should also say, when you're talking about the tree climbing lion, and you're saying that other places have them as well, I saw tree climbing lion as you alluded to in Uganda, and if anybody is keen to go to Uganda and they want to include tree climbing lion as part of that itinerary, then heading south to the Queen Elizabeth National Park, in particular the zone there that's called Ishasha. That's the place to go and see them. It's a stunning, stunning location, really breathtaking. I don't know if you've been there, Emma, but
I
it's
have.
in the shadows of the Ruwenzori as well. It's absolutely breathtaking down there, and that's where where the tree climbing lion can be seen there. Anyway, I thought, oh, we'll just do a quick little back ref there. But look, everybody, the Delta, the Okavango Delta, is certainly one of the great natural wonders of the world. And as far as Botswana is concerned and the wildlife is concerned, this is an absolute mecca. The trips that Emma's been talking about all happen in the Delta area, and it's prolific with wildlife and bird life, absolutely prolific, and it's year-round prolific as well. Of course, when the waters are coming in, and Emma said, they come down from the Angola highlands, when it's raining hard up there in their main raining season about now into February. That's where the catchment area starts to fill up, and then it takes a good 6-7 months or so to flow then all the way down through Angola, crosses the Caprivi of Namibia, and then into the Panhandle in that northwestern corner of Botswana, and then goes down the main Okavango River to then into this alluvial fan that then spreads out over this vast, vast land, very, very flat indeed. And in the summer months, June, July, it really, really fills up with water as the big push, as they call it, comes on down from Angola. And this is an unbelievable place to go and enjoy the beauty of sub-Saharan wildlife. It's absolutely incredible. And it is the Moremi Game Reserve that dominates where you can do these wonderful mobile tented safaris. And the next slide, just to illustrate how the delta is all divided up into the various concessions. It looks like one of the spider's webs that Emma was showing you earlier. But these are the NG zones. So these are the government zones that basically divided the whole delta area up into private reserves, private concessions, and then public government concessions. NG, as they're NGs as they are referred to, national government zones, and it is NG 28, that large central one that covers Chiefs Island, the main central area of the Delta, the Boro River, for example, that goes through, the Kwai River that comes along the north, and the Moremi Game Reserve. It's the NG28, which is the most accessible of the zones that the Delta is being divided up into, and it is here that you can do the mobile tented safaris with guides. The other zones are private concessions, private reserves, certainly expensive, less likely to do the mobile tented safaris there. They are going to be lodge based up there, whereas in NG28 and the Moremi Game Reserve in particular, that's where we do all of the mobile tented safaris. So just to illustrate the different levels of accommodation that you can have in the Delta area, and so therefore just to kind of position the mobile tented safari experience. The lodges that can be found around the Delta, and there are hundreds of lodges across all of those zones of the Okavango Delta, range fairly significantly in price. Entry level is mid-range, and there's a few entry level accommodations in that NG28 in the Moremi area. There's mostly high-end accommodations within them, and then all of those separate private concessions that kind of circle the that central Moremi area. They are predominantly dominated by the ultra high-end lodges. And certainly, the lodges provide great wildlife experiences and exceptional comfort as well. There is no doubt about that. But certainly, they come at an absolute premium. The higher you go up, the mid-range, high-end, and then the ultra high-end, you can get to some fairly eye-watering, mortgage-breaking prices quite seriously. So the mobile tented safaris, they provide what I would say is a much more, relatively speaking, affordable way to experience the same amount of wildlife, perhaps if not more in my experience, and certainly an excellent level of comfort, an excellent level of guiding, and holistically a really wonderful, grounding, natural safari experience in the great outdoors. And just to illustrate the way that the camp is operated and what you can expect, and for those of you who are thinking of doing one, or perhaps haven't felt that it's the right thing for you, or perhaps you don't know enough about them, this will illustrate the kind of setup that it is. It's not the girl guiding Boy Scouts wigwam tents sleeping on the floor by any stretch of the imagination. They're really good house tents, the Meru style house tents, typically 2 single beds inside them, although double beds can be arranged if you want. You've got hanging facilities, wardrobe facilities, cupboard facilities, all camping style, table facilities. You've got really good lighting in them. They're all en suite as well. So out the back, you have bucket showers. You've got all of the washing equipment that you need in there as well. There's really, really comfortable, proper beds, really lovely comfy duvets, pillows, blankets, hot water bottles. I mean, it's everything that you need and more for this kind of experience. Just to move the slides on a little bit more, Emma, this will illustrate how the camp can also provide for very large family groups. For example, if you're a multi-generation, grandparents wanting to travel with their children and their grandchildren, this is a really good setup for that as well, where you have 2 tents together and they share a central ensuite area in the middle as well. It's a brilliant setup, and the campsites themselves are really spacious. You're not crammed into small central areas where you've got neighbours right beside you and all the rest of it. They're really well spaced apart, and the bathroom facilities are great. It is bucket showers, but it's hot water, and the camp staff that you have with you, they'll fill the showers for you either in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on when you want to have your shower. You've got basin facilities, mirrors, you've got a Western style toilet, you've got all the towels that are provided as well. It's really, really, super comfortable. And I think we've got a little video just to kind of illustrate, what it is like to be in one of these tents as well. You've got the carpets, you've got the rugs, plenty of space. They're really clean. They're kept really clean while you're out on safari. They're cleaned through. There's really good equipment as well. The locations of the campsites are always fantastic. This is in Mababe, which is a private area within the Moremi concession. It illustrates where the camp team are. That's where they do all the cooking and provide all the food from. You've got a few other tents around which are part of your group as well. There's typically 4 or 5 tents are required for the group sizes that we do. You've got a little veranda area as well. So there's plenty of space apart from each other, and there's plenty of space within your own camp, and you're a fair distance away from where there may be other groups doing a similar kind of thing as well. And the camp team, they set it up so professionally. You have this dining area. This is where breakfast, lunch, and dinner is served. It's always a very, very social affair. In the evening, it's wine glasses. Pretty much any alcohol that you want to have. There's usually a pretty good sunset going on at the same time as well. The campfire is always lit, so in the mornings it's a nice place to congregate. In the evenings it's a nice place to decompress as well, and it's just a lovely, lovely way to really experience that element of real raw nature. It's unfenced, and you're on the ground with the wildlife, and it's really, really thrilling. And I find it a very grounding experience. I've done this 3 or 4 times now, and it's very grounding indeed. And what is also great is that it's tech free. You can't get onto the internet. Nobody's messaging you or WhatsApping you. You're just concentrating on having an entirely immersive experience in nature with wildlife all around you. It's absolutely wonderful. We've got a few slides just to demonstrate that the vehicles that you use on the mobile tented safaris exactly the same level and exactly the same standard as you'd have if you were staying at a lodge. Land cruisers, 3 rows of seats at the back. For the photography tours, typically will take 4, maximum of 6 people in the vehicle, I'd have thought. Would that be right, Emma? Or do you have a few more than that on occasions?
No, for photography it would be 6, yeah.
Yep. So everybody's got,
Yeah.
their own side, and the padding is there for the cameras as well. And you've got a guide with you. You'll have a tracker there as well. Great vehicles, so that you're not compromising anything at all there with the vehicles whatsoever. And one of the things that Emma was saying, throughout her presentation was, we heard that there was a leopard just here, so we'd quickly dash out here, or we'd zip over there because we knew that this was over here, etc., etc. When you're mobile tenting safaris, you're there on the ground, you're immersed in the activity, and the activity is happening all around you. When I last did a tented safari, it was last November, in the Moremi Reserve, and then in Mababe as well. And we had a leopard that was quite literally about 200 meters away from our camp. And we're at that camp for 3 days. And that leopard was there for 3 days with her 2 cubs. And that was just on our doorstep. The nearest lodge was a good 25-minute drive away. So we just had it there on our doorstep. Sure, it was luck. But of course, we had chosen to do this tented safari because we wanted to have that fully immersive experience. And when you're out there in the wilds and in the bush, it's all there right on your doorstep, and you have immediate access to it. And 7 times out of 10, you're the first ones there, because you're the first ones there in the morning, or you can stay there longer in the evenings. And that's part of the experience. And Emma also mentioned about hearing the wildlife around her, when she's in the tent going to sleep, hearing leopards chewing on bones, etc. I had a thrilling experience. It was about 5 years ago. It was, again, fairly gruesome. But yeah, we had a zebra being taken down by a pride of lion. And that was pretty gruesome to listen to at 3 o'clock in the morning. but at the same time, I felt privileged to be able to hear that, and it provided real context for the routine of life that the wildlife have here. They're not putting it on show. It's happening there all the time. And you can get up in the mornings, and sometimes there are tracks that have come through the camp, and the guides will say, well, this was so and so, and this was so and so. It's all there happening around you all the time. And for me, it's a real privilege to be able to get that close to the wildlife as an experience, not just to see it, but to hear it and understand it as well. And I think that that's what the mobile tented safaris do, in addition to providing the same access that you can have from a lodge. There's something more that you get from that tented experience as well. Just to finish off with a couple of other slides, in Mababe is a private concession within the Moremi Reserve. So this is the only place where you can do mobile tented safaris and also do the night drives as well. And Mababe forms part of quite a number of trips that we operate. And it's a beautiful place, really beautiful. And obviously doing those night drives where you can't do anywhere else in Moremi, you get access to see some of those more specialist nocturnal animals as well. This is another little video just to illustrate. Well, this is Mababe. This is the dining area that's set up at Mababe. So this is where we come in the afternoons to have tea and coffee and the most amazing cake that they make for us here. Do some amazing bird watching, kingfishers galore here along the river here. But also just to demonstrate how close you are to the wildlife and how the wildlife comes and goes. We had elephant walking right through our camp. So that little tent video that I showed you, my tent is just behind the vehicle that you can see to the right. There it is. We had elephant coming through the camp. It's not often that happens at some of the lodges in Moremi. Most of them do have a fence around them. But with the mobile tented safaris, the wildlife, it comes and goes as it chooses and as it wishes. It doesn't put on a show for you at all. And, if you're in their way, then they will just, pass through. That's what they do. And these are the sorts of experiences that you can have on a tented safari that, again, for me, I think it really adds to that authentic, immersive safari experience that I love going to lodges, and some of the great wildlife experiences that I've had have been through, access to lodge. But there is something nice about remaining out there on safari, even when you're just having some downtime, back at the dining tent. And that's what I really love about the tented safaris. You get great service as well with the tented safaris. You have a cook. You have a support chef, you have your guide, sometimes a tracker as well, and there'll also be the camp hand. So you'll have a minimum of 5, if not 6 people who are there to make sure that you have a wonderful time. And, with the small groups that we do, 6 or 7 people typically, that's pretty much a 1-to-1 ratio of staff to guest. And to that end, you'll be so well looked after. You'll feel like royalty, and that again, it adds to the experience. You get to know some great people because they are great people that serve the camp and put it together as well. And as I said, you can stay out in the bush. Certainly when you're in Mababe until, as Emma said, you're doing sun gone down and then you can drive back in the evening, at night and enjoy not only the dwindling daylight, the sunlight as it goes, but then you merge into, really nice, lovely early evening night drive as well on your way back to the camp for supper. So it's a really comfortable, very, very luxurious camping tented safari to do. Relative value for money, I think, it is so good when the comparison is, if you want to go to a mid-range lodge, I would suggest that you're getting probably 3 nights tented safari for 1 night at a mid-range lodge. A high-end lodge I would say you're getting 4, maybe 5 nights tented safari for one night at one of those. And if you're going ultra high end, I mean, seriously, 6 or 7 nights of tented safari for one night in one of those high end private lodges. They really, are extraordinarily expensive. But they need to be because they're in, very expensive reserves. So I think that the relative value for money for a tented safari experience over a lodge experience is well worth it. As I said, that intimate, immersive experience with nature. You leave Maun and you drive into the Delta area, and whether you're doing just, the Delta area or whether you're going on into Savuti and up to the north as well, it's that fully immersive experience with nature and wildlife from the moment that you leave, civilization, as it were. You have such great swift access to wildlife sightings as well. You can be really nimble with, the guides are always talking to each other. And, as Emma said, they heard about the old boy, the old lion that was over there. So they jumped in the vehicles and off they go. Yeah, you've got that with the tented safaris, as well as the flexibility during the drives to be able to get up when you want and go home when you want as well. Minimal environmental impact, that has to be a factor as well. The camps are run with great consideration to the environment. And a leave no trace ethos is absolutely adopted by the suppliers that we work with in country, who are rigid about that as well. As you've seen, it's comfort in the wild. As I said, it's not Boy Scout Girl Guide as it was 20 years ago or more. It's real comfort, and as I would say, luxury camping. I guess it's a bit more than glamping, as it's called, and that flexibility of the drives is so good. The high level of guide attention is good because they are there all the time in the wild. They know where to find the wildlife. The knowledge of it is so good, and they can track it so well while you're there too. And I would also say that with the relative value for money, it does mean, I personally think, that it opens up the option to add in things that you may not have otherwise, felt was the right thing to do, budget wise, or felt that you had time to do. So, for example, when I was there in November, I did 5 or 6 days of the mobile camping in Moremi, but I was also able then to do a really brilliant experience, and nothing that I thought I would, go for. But I did a 45-minute helicopter scenic wildlife flight as well from Kwai, which is in Moremi, and that was amazing. The cost actually isn't all that much when you realise that you're saving so much by doing a tented safari, and it's so easy to add in. And it was one of the best things that I've done in a really, really, really long time. I'm all about, those who know me, I'm all about the narrative of the environment and the landscape and the wildlife. And doing the helicopter safari in the Delta, it is as flat as an ironing board, as a mirror. And you see the scale of this gigantic area. We were flying above this beautiful moment when we flew over 3 or 4 saddle-billed stork. We were seeing elephant walking through the rivers. We saw some amazing stuff, but it added to an understanding of what makes the Okavango Delta tick. And also we were able to fly over areas that we had done some safaris as well. So it provided a great perspective. So I don't think we'd have done that were it not for the fact that we're doing a tented safari, because we felt as if, the cost of doing that was absolutely justifiable. And it really added to the experience. So I think there's some really good reasons to consider a tented safari, and I would, fully endorse them. They're really, really wonderful. And if you've got reservations about them, then hopefully, Emma's talk and the last 10 minutes or so has hopefully given you pause for thought with those. And we do have some wonderful trips that we'd like to give you the opportunity to learn more about. So while we just ask whether or not there's any final questions, what we'll do is quickly post up here a poll. So I'm going to launch this now, and hopefully in front of you, you've got a poll where you can decide whether or not you would like to receive some documents regarding any of these trips. I can see that you're adding that in now. Emma, is there anything you want to say about, particularly about any of these trips at all?
A couple of things I probably should have said. So, for the Heart of the Delta and the Botswana photo safari, we fly from Maun straight into either the camp or an airstrip close to the camp in the obviously with the tented safari. Um, so we did for the first couple of years that we ran the trip, we did drive and it took a good 6, 7 hours and it was quite a long drive. So we've now amended that and now it is for both of those we fly in on the little planes. And I know that fills photographers with fear, mainly because of luggage limits. But and I know the feeling. I spend my entire life panicking about what's in my bag. Um, so you get a specific amount. I think it's 20 kilos. I'd have to double check, but I think it's 20, 23
Yeah.
kilos, depending on the size of the group. Because we charter, it depends slightly on one of them. So, but you can always speak to us about that. And there are generally options to then buy an additional seat, which gives you an extra 5, 10K of luggage. So it just takes some of that worry out of it. So we tend to try and use British Airways flights where we can, so that obviously you've got 23 kilos of luggage in your hand luggage as well. But I know for photographers that can be quite a daunting process of packing and trying to figure out what to take and what to put in your pockets and whatnot. So yeah, we fly
So
into
the
both of those.
Botswana photo safari, yeah. So that photo safari, that's got 6 nights tented safari,
Yeah,
3 nights in a lodge. I think
yeah.
it's about
So
60,
Mababi,
70,
yeah,
something like
Mababi,
that.
Kwai, and then we drive to Kasane, stay in a lodge in Kasane, and then we fly from Kasane home. So it's a really nice spot to
And
do. Some people then went on to do Vic Falls. So there's, you can always add on things like that
nice.
quite easily. So if, you haven't seen Vic Falls, it's a really good time to go there. So you can just add it on for 2, 3 nights. Got a couple of lovely lodges that we work with there. And yeah, it's good.
And then Best of Botswana, that's pretty much all mobile tented safari, as is
Yeah, best of
Botswana
bots is
Wild Dog
nine
Wild
nine nights
and
tented and one, yeah, one in a lodge at the end. Wild dogs is tented. Birds and mammals of Botswana is tented, but that one's in the green season, so that tends to be kind of January to March. And then Wings over Botswana, like
and
Nick said, that's at the slightly better camps, or higher end camps, and you tend to fly between them. But there's lots of choices of different providers that we use for that, so it's just something that we can put together for you as a trip.
cool. A few questions, Emma. And literally only a few. When you're on safari, what vehicle do you use? 4x4 with how many people in it? I think we've answered that. It's the Land
Yeah.
Cruisers. And particularly for the photos, we use 6 people. I think it's 6 for most of our trips in
It
one
is,
vehicle.
and
Yeah.
it's one of these things, and we get asked quite a lot, is there any way to get a row per person? And we have tried. The lodges are getting quite wise to that now, and the prices that they're charging for the additional vehicles make it unfortunately quite cost prohibitive. So yeah, we tend to try and keep it as six, and then we'd never go over six. The only time it could potentially
No.
be is when the spotter needs to hop into the middle. But we'll move within the vehicles and just try and make it as flexible as possible. But yeah, we all need to be a little bit flexible, but we'll try as much as possible to give you space.
I think we've covered off the weight restrictions for getting into these locations in respect of photography and laptop equipment, haven't we? I think we've answered those.
Yeah, I
Typically,
mean,
issues that are it's rare to encounter significant issues, really, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, actually, the biggest issue I've ever had was going to Malaysia and Malaysia Airlines because you're only allowed 7 kilos and they got quite strict about it. But I mean, generally speaking, as long
Thankfully, we're not
as
doing a Malaysia presentation.
exactly, phew, anyone going there, beware, no joke. It was only a one-off. Um, but no, generally speaking, they're pretty good. If you have a wheelie bag, it's if you can put it on your back, it's advisable. If you have a wheel, they do sometimes then threaten to put it in the hold. My excuse is always lithium batteries, expensive camera equipment. And if they're getting really difficult, you can always take out the camera and the biggest lens, put it around your neck and say that that's your accessory. That's quite a good way to get around it sometimes if they're really struggling. And even on the small flights, to be honest, generally I'll take my camera out just in case, because you might see something as you're flying over. We tend to see kind of elephants in water holes and
Yeah.
things as you fly past.
Emma, we've got a few questions on the same theme.
Mm,
People are understandably querying the charging facilities
mm.
for
Yes.
equipment. My experience is that with the vehicles that we use, they've got a charging bank on the very
Yeah.
front row with loads of plugs in it, and everybody dives into that and charges galore. So
Yeah.
with the trips that I've done, never been a problem before. There's energy supplies galore.
Yeah. Yeah, generally speaking, so there's always that charging bank in the vehicle. They've also got USB points in the vehicle and a couple of plugs, I think. So normally you can charge basically from when we leave in the morning, you can charge any time. So we leave at before sunrise, like I was saying, about 5-ish. We tend to kind of drive around. We'll stop for a coffee at maybe half 8, 9. Then drive a little bit more, come back to the camp about don't know, 10:30, 11-ish, depending on what we've seen. And then you can charge your whole lunch break because obviously the vehicle's warmed itself up. So you can charge any time during that lunch break. And then we'll head out again about half 3, 4 o'clock. So then you can charge anything then while we're driving, and then until we get back really and have dinner. The only thing you can't do is charge overnight. So even when we get back at 7:30, 8 o'clock, we'll have dinner and you can leave stuff charging, just grab it before you go to bed. So yeah, I've never had any issues. There does have to be a bit of a system of, right, is yours done? Can you put mine in? And yes, photographers do have many things, but it's just worth bringing lots of batteries. And also, like Nick said, you don't need your phone really, other than if you're using it as a camera, but there's no signal, which is blissful. So you don't need to charge your
Yeah.
phone much. But if you do have one of those battery packs, I sometimes just take a little one of those just to charge the phone and do a few other bits. And generally that's enough. So yeah, we've never had a problem where it's been a big issue.
Emma, it's gone 9 o'clock, and I'm
I
going to finish.
know.
I'm going to answer the last two questions.
Okay.
We've got a client who is already booked to go with us in May and June. Perhaps the wrong time to ask the question, if I may say so, having booked the holiday. But I'm going to answer it for you anyway. Is May, June a good time to go? Well, yes, it is. It's a great time to go. It's just on the cusp of getting cold, because July and August are cold. Don't underestimate how cold it will be at night time and early in the mornings in Botswana. So it's just on the transition of going away from being crazy, crazy hot into getting very, very cold at night. So it's in that lovely shoulder season. There'll also be a lot of water around as well, which will be great because the floods have come down. So there'll be really good wildlife observations, along the shores, if you like, of the delta and the river system. So it's a great time of year to go for that. I would also say, don't underestimate. This is to anybody who's going in July, late June, July, August, and into September. Don't underestimate how cold it will be at night. It's proper down jackets, woolly hats, gloves, the whole shooting match. It really,
Thermals.
really is very cold at night. But then it burns off really, really quickly, and by 10 o'clock in the morning, it's pretty warm again, and that's it for the rest of the day. So you're taking off your layers there throughout the day. I would also say that the green season is a really terrific time to go as well. Really, really affordable, massively affordable. And sure, at that time, it does become a little bit challenging with some of the routes, the driven safari routes that you can do there. But the birding is amazing, and the mammals are really good then as well. And there's very few other people there at that time. That's the lowest time for footfall, and it's very affordable. It's a great time to go. So I was there in November, just when the rains were starting, and it was terrific, absolutely terrific. Really, really great experience there. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Emma, if that's okay with you. I know you could carry on talking for another couple of hours. I definitely could, without a doubt. But you've got 2 days ahead of you at Manchester destination. So again, if anybody's in the area over the next 4 days, do go to the Manchester Destinations Travel Show. You can look it up online and come and see Wildlife Worldwide at their stand. Emma's going to be there in person, signing autographs, no doubt, Emma, for the next 2 days. And don't forget, we've got some more Discovery series coming up this month. Next up is Discover Ecuador on the 22nd, in a week's time or so. Then we've got Discover South Africa, and then coming up in February, Costa Rica and Sri Lanka. What a fantastic, fantastic few evenings you've got ahead of you. And don't forget, you can book a holiday with us with a discount of £150. If you're going to be booking it to Botswana, it's BotZoom26. So there you go. That's everything for now. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Thank you for staying with us as long as you have. We have overrun ever so slightly, but it's only because we're passionate about what we talk about and what we do. So thank you all very much for listening, and stay safe and see you soon.